It's been almost a month since the World Series champion was crowned. Man, that's still an amazing series to look back on. If you're not from Canada or a Jays fan. Sorry, I had to. This is the inspiration for every other franchise to look towards. Lifting up that trophy is a sign of triumph over adversity. Even for those that failed to make the postseason entirely. There were the blatantly rebuilding, the colossal disappointments, the flameouts, and the simply god-awful in every conceivable fashion. These are the stories of the 18 teams that have been in off-season mode for 2 months. Maybe more in some cases. Let's get to it, I'm light enough with this as it is. Preseason expectations are quite the bitch, aren't they? To be told that this was the year everything would line up for a true push, yet the only one happening is Into the Harbor. The season was over by May. So much for taking that next step with the elite core. Team pitching jumped off the Calvert cliffs, particularly starting pitching. And the half measures the O's took in the offseason surprisingly did nothing. Barring Brendan Hyde was the most they did in years, to be fair. Although there was progress since he was canned. Going around 500 and Trevor Rogers turned into the best pitcher in baseball for about 3 months. It might have done enough to save Mike Elias' job to the chagrin of Baltimore. In response, welcome Craig Albernaz from Cleveland to the head skipper's role. Not really the name they were looking for, but it could work. Yet many questions remain. Gunnar Henderson remains unextended, a bunch of hitters had god-awful years, and Adley Rutschman might be on the way out. Adley's fading bat in the extension for Sam Basayo are heading towards it, regardless of the dreaded vote of confidence he got. They need pitching bad. Did you see most of it this year? When your best pitcher in the first half is Tomoyuki Sagano, to call it dreadful's an understatement. Are they simply relying on Bradish and Grayson returning in 2026? Hold on, scratch that, they traded Grayson for Taylor Ward. When the team highlights embarrassing the Dodgers in a series, it's pain. Sometimes trying to push for the top with limited resources runs out of gas. Wait a minute, I shouldn't say sometimes, it always ends up being the case. You should seriously commend the Rays for keeping that window open as long as possible. In most circumstances, this would have fallen apart much earlier. A lot like Shane McClanahan. He had a major setback in his rehab and didn't return this year. And who knows if he's ever the same. That was the Rays' season. They were just there. In the mix for the division lead in late June, but slowly faded away when the July and August grind appeared. Drew Rasmussen's reemergence could only do so much. Their endgame was weak like their outfield outputs. Chandler Simpson just can't be Ben Revere with Ducks and expect to survive. His fielding sponsored by Hillsborough County Trash and Recycling Collection. At least they got a replacement for Wander Franco's Lolita Express and Junior Caminero. The dude looks like a legitimate superstar, and should be the next piece Tampa Bay builds off of. As they try to get him to avoid underage Dominican brides, the greatest victory of the season happened. Stuart Sternberg is gone. Tampa Bay is free. Patrick Solupski is the new head honcho, and a new stadium in the area is paramount to his efforts. They'll be moving back to the Trop for the time being. Reconstruction efforts are well underway, but the same problems of that stadium remain. Mostly with the team treading water. So how do they catch sunlight? I'd have been more shocked if things somehow did get worse for them. One of the most improved teams in baseball this year. The White Sox have gone from historically abhorrent to simply bad. Pope Leo XIV adds at least 5 more wins to the record by his presence in the Vatican alone. Or is that just Colson Montgomery and Edgar Caro making the roster? Yeah, they mostly sucked, especially with runners in scoring position, but once again, better than whatever the fuck last season was, so it works. Chris Getz' his eternal rebuild continues on with haste. As a bunch of assistants work hand once the dust settled. You can't really gauge much from a year like this, only hope that Matt Ishbia gains control ASAP. And hopefully be a lot better than Ryan Stupis. There are only 2 words that strike more fear to Luis Robert than him at the plate. Team option. Enjoy your celebration cake shake while you wait for the next 15-year rebuild in 2038. You want to know the sad thing about this? This is the first time the Royals have finished with consecutive records over 500 in a decade. It's a fine certificate of mediocrity indeed. One with some legitimate skill. We'll be building statues to Bobby Witt Jr. someday. Might be in the same area they built Salvies. And it'll be quite the hit. Unlike the Royals this year. There were only 4 players that were worth more than Kansas cow shit in the box. The rest were duds or guys on an eternal struggle bus stuck in standstill I-435 traffic like Jack Caglione. Even for their impressively strong pitching all around, if you can't hit, you won't win anywhere. Most strikeouts in the league and near the bottom in all offensive categories. Yet Alex Zumwalt's coming back for some reason? Does he make good barbecue or something? It's not the worst scenario in the world, especially with their strong fielding and emergences of Noah Cameron and Chris Bubich. But they need a lot more to push further. Kansas City just has to figure out the next step. Kind of like them in their new stadium. Or what's supposed to be their new stadium. Is there even a plan to secure funding? Just trust in Bobby Witt Jr. and pray? Worst case scenario this season. Even the most cynical of us didn't believe that this would happen to the T's. Poor Rocco. He was the scapegoat for a disaster season. Well, bring in the next placeholder as they flay more of the team's skin to shed payroll. Derek Shelton? On behalf of Pirates fans, I am so damn sorry. So the first foray away from Oakland had its moments. Incredible collapses that ended any semblance of contention around May, but at least the A's are showing progress. If you look at it from this angle, the year was a tremendous success. Just pay attention to the bats. That hitting core has the potential to be phenomenal. Nick Kurtz is looking like the real deal. A revelation that you can build a damn team around. Jacob Wilson? Same thing, he's a beast, especially in day games. Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker, and Tyler Soderstrom along with them. Denzel Clark's web gems? That's a group you can build around and it's impressive as hell. Now can they get some fucking competent pitching? 4 straight seasons of allowing 700 plus runs. It's been their Achilles heel for a while. And it got worse after shipping off Mason Miller. To be fair, when San Diego threw one of the top prospects in baseball and more in the deal, you take it. The rest of it is disappointing and belligerent as Luis Severino. And poorly planned like the temporary stay in Sacramento. Who knew locals wouldn't show up for a group that burned every bridge in Oakland and will be gone soon? They expected routine sellouts at $200 a game for lawn seats? Even in a minor league park? But those clowns at the top have a solution for you. Get ready for Sacramento Saturdays, with Sacramento on the jersey. Don't you feel involved yet? I guess this is preparing them for being a soulless tourist trap when they move to Las Vegas. Talk to the Raiders, they'll give you the lowdown. Congratulations, Houston. Your season may have been a miserable slog and it's the first time you missed the playoffs in almost a decade, but a fine award is yours. The most injured team in baseball. God, what a long list of wounded they had this year. Your Don started the year off hurt, but he came back in time for the playoff push. And he's hurt again. Isaac Paredes suffered major injury before the deadline. Luis Garcia, Christian Javier, Ronel Blanco, Josh Hader. They all went down at some point long term. And you can argue the Hader injury fucked them harder than anything else. And Frombear? He's fucking cancer with what he pulled with his catcher. Get him the fuck out of there. I'd say the same with Christian Walker, but he's got a limited no-trade clause. I'd say that was their biggest mistake this past offseason, but they never properly replaced Kyle Tucker. Cam Smith was good for a few months, then fell off the face of the map. Everyone thought Jose Altuve in left field was going to be a disaster. We were correct. He'd be moved back to second in less than 50 games. Even bringing Carlos Correa home couldn't stop the free fall, and he carried the hospital bedpan when freed from Minnesota. They were too banged up and too flawed to make an impact when needed. What a waste of Hunter Brown's talents. Dude was fighting for a Cy Young and the Astros were lying in the bottom of a trash can. Especially against Seattle to end the year. I'd have hope, but they're going to be as constrained as a lady in a corset with their payroll, especially with adding Correa. And with those Christian Walker and Lance McCullers anchors holding them back, you need more Jeremy Peñas. Find a way to pull them out of your ass or else you'll get more shit years like this. Oh, you're telling me the Astros received a second award? The second worst farm system in baseball? How the hell is that an award? Things were looking quite impressive against the White Sox to open the year. 2-1 with the world as your oyster. Too bad they went 70-89 to finish the campaign. The Angels exist to make everyone suffer as Artie Moreno runs everything further into the ground. I legitimately don't know how you can do that, but he finds a way. Featuring an offense that gets on base about as often as Butthead and can do pretty much nothing outside of Zach Neto and Joe Adell. At least you got your guys to produce power this year. But that meant you had to sacrifice Mike Trout and his soothsayer glove. Not only fighting lingering injuries, he suffered the worst production of his career. The Halos need to face war crimes for this atrocity, but instead will strike out the most in baseball and trot out Kyle Hendricks in a swan song that wasn't very good. Quite the dead end of a franchise. Sometimes I wonder why they just don't imitate Anthony Rendon and not even bother whatsoever, but idiocy needs to take center stage. Ron Washington wasn't anything close to a problem. He had to leave due to a medical issue for the remainder of the year. I hate to tell you, Ron, but Artie's bored of you and your veteranosity. Your parking spot's been removed from team headquarters permanently. So what archetype's left for him to hire? A former franchise player? No, not Pujols. He's already getting paid enough by them as it is. Perry Manassian's puppeting Kurt Suzuki will do nicely here. He's got some promise. With a 1-year deal for a manager? This is giving me shades of David Culley and Jim Thompson. The team as broken as the weight room air conditioning. The team currently in Egypt, they're so deep in denial. Is anyone interested in being a part-time HVAC technician for pennies on the dollar? People joke that Major League Baseball should investigate the Rangers for their 2023 World Series ring. After the last 2 years, though, maybe they have a point. I will say this, if championships were solely based on pitching, Texas would be a perennial contender. Jacob deGrom had 2 Tommy John surgeries and he's still dominating. Nathan Eovaldi was even better than him. If he pitched the full year, he'd have a Cy Young, I'm not joking. Tyler Mahle was strong, Jack Leiter held his own, the bullpen was underrated all season. So why didn't they make the dance? Can't dance when you can't hit and can't get on base. They tried pressing a bunch of different buttons. Even Brett Boone is hitting coach, but nothing worked. Dragging ass like a Dolis at the plate. He somehow got even worse. And that Marcus Semien deal? Even with that gold glove, it might be souring in real time with his impotence and ailments. Corey Seager had injury issues too, despite his elite production. And the underperformance results in standard mediocrity. Change was needed. And it comes in an amicable divorce. It's only amicable between the Rangers and Bruce Bochy because they won a World Series together. But to get back there, they need that spark again. Maybe they get it from Skip Shoemaker, maybe not, but it couldn't hurt. He did decent work in Miami until they pulled the rug from under him. Skip will have a better situation here, at least in the payroll department. Like the state of Texas, the Rangers' power grid needs upgrading. Maybe Seager's wife can work her magic with Cody Bellinger's wife. Happy wife, happy life, right? The National League's answer to the Baltimore Orioles. A purported World Series contender hyped to hell and back only to fall flat on their faces on the first charge. At least the Braves can pretend they have an excuse as to why this happened. Everybody got injured to hell. It started with Acuna, continued with their pitching staff, and apparently it spread to their hitters at the plate itself. The season was as lost as Bryce Elder on the mound by July. Everyone knew it, no point in pretending that there was a chance in hell. Those that fancy themselves elite don't finish below the goddamn Marlins in the standing. Especially those that do the bare minimum in the offseason. Well, at least until they willingly swallow Ha-Sung Kim's contract for some reason? Oh great, now you start winning, Braves. Now you play to potential in mid-September. Sure, most everyone's healthy. Drake Baldwin won Rookie of the Year and Matt Olson's damn good, but what the hell? It was just that kind of season. And it's time for change. Ryan Snitker's moving upstairs to an advisory role. Won a World Series and lasted in the role for about a decade. Not bad for a so-called placeholder hire. The rumors are swirling. David Ross, Chipper Jones. Perhaps their next manager will be Walt Weiss. Walt fucking Weiss is your new skipper? You stayed in-house for another retread? Do you seriously think you're gonna find another Snicker out of a hat again? God, these guys are so fucking frustrating. Tanking, eh? This team was gonna be completely terrible, we thought. Seems like the Marlins had other plans. Not entirely due to them, but a lot of reasons were part of it. Otto Lopez and Xavier Edwards holding the torch for the past nuking. Kyle Stowers turning into a damn good player out of seemingly nowhere. Jacob Marcy in his second half tearing it up. Javier Sanoja winning a gold glove as a utility man. They've got questions to answer still, but their hitting core should lead to a brighter tomorrow. Edward Cabrera was a stud in the rotation. For a team this wrecked to not only keep fighting for a playoff spot to the very end, but have a 500 record in late July? Not gonna lie, kind of impressive. But they just don't have enough right now. Like Sandy Alcantara struggling to find any semblance of form until the end. Like prospects still having growing pains in the lineup and a high team ERA due to lack of depth. There's still a ways to go in deep rebuild number 5. Fortunate thing is that there's momentum. Even in TV ratings? Guess the Bendix way's the truth after all. Next year will be a test of staying power. I wonder how they'll respond to the sudden surge. Mets fans were looking forward to watching a potential World Series run. What they ended up watching was the slow death of a close relative. Age and fate eat away at their exterior. And all people can do is brace for 3 months of abject horror. It was less collapse and more slow motion Staten Island ferry crash. June led to an inexplicable implosion. From then on, things simply fell apart, especially in the pitching department. That core gave up more walks than a sunny day in Central Park. Seemingly endless waves of injuries did them in. And the loss of Kodai Senga was the canary in the coal mine. 46 pitchers used. Most of them had to go under the knife for major surgery. Even the rentals at the deadline were mostly disasters. The less they have to see Ryan Helsley and Cedric Mullins in the future, the better they'll be. An offseason where they spent almost $1 billion and a $340 million payroll imploding into $1 billion pieces. And in sweet irony, like that 2007 collapse, the final dagger is driven in by the fucking Marlins. Not even Nolan McClain can save you from that. An abject disaster in every way known to man. Now they'll have to find a way to keep Edwin and a polar bear around. Or pony up even more to try and will this team to a World Series. Does an embarrassed Daddy Steve have any more priceless paintings or antiques to offer up to foot the bill? Does he scream at David Stearns to not get cute with his dumpster diving? Or not lose any more assistance to the goddamn Braves? Rebuilds. You gotta love them as they make you tear your heart out every chance you get. Growing pains are a hell of a drug. If you can't manage to break through after years of frustration, you better find someone who can. The good news is that James Wood looks really fucking good. Abrams and Gore are as well, although Gore might be traded, so who knows. If only the rest of the team managed to develop like they did. Seriously, there was next to no one else besides those guys. It was an army of replacement-level fodder for the most part. You have to be able to stop runs from scoring sometimes, boys. The only team that gave up more plays their game's a mile above sea level, which is how a season gets hit second deck at nearly every opportunity. Ball smoked like the Jake and Jake Brisket Sando. That bullpen was fucking atrocious. Wave the white flag, because that lead is being surrendered at record speed. They blew 20 of them. A team ERA of 5.5 back there. No wonder why the old regime got toppled. Rizzo and Davey merely chucked out Brad Lord or Jackson Rutledge to give up another 3-run bomb or something. Perhaps get a core piece of the team that isn't from the Juan Soto trade. Dylan Cruz and Brady House have promised, but their bats are all but nothing right now. The Nationals need a joltin' bat, so they're looking for a young gun for a young team. 33-year-old Blake Butera. He's from the Rays, so he knows a thing or two about youth movements. Not just him, their new team president Paul Taboni is 35. They better work out. If not, repeat the cycle in 3 years. You're also ineligible for a top 10 pick this year as well. Bad time to fail so mightily. I'm not shocked by this. No one that follows them should be. A team that does fuck all in the offseason to improve does fuck all when it matters? How absolutely shocking. Who knew that a team unable to develop hitters can't hit the ball at all? Attempting to score runs was like watching a tourist try to decipher parking chairs. Shit wasn't happening. The Bucko bricks taken away for supposed care, then left to rot in a local landfill in a completely unnecessary scandal. You can also substitute the Clemente wall decal if you wish. Baseball getting the belt out and whipping this trash team every chance they can. And this is with Paul Skeens getting wins pissed away due to offensive impotence. Don't worry about Oneil Cruz being the second coming of El Cafe and Brian Reynolds falling off the face of the map. Here's Kutch for his third farewell tour while suffering painful decline in every facet of play. The season went off the rails by May, and that was more than enough time for Derek Shelton to reveal himself as a fraud. Don Kelly held his own as manager, and the players responded to him, so he's earned a permanent spot for the time being. I guess the pitchers didn't like Oscar Marine, but keeping Ben Sherrington? He's been fucking terrible as GM here. Why are they keeping him? If you aren't gonna do a damn thing, which you won't, don't bother with the false hype. I'll believe them signing Kyle Schwarber when I see it happen. Otherwise, just step out of the way and let the real teams trade for Skeens and Bubba Chandler. And Mitch Keller. And Connor Griffin. And anyone else worth a shit. What a lifeless lump. A franchise long spinning the wheels of futility with apathy seeping through at nearly every angle. They have names in some pieces, but nowhere near enough. A decent start keeping up with the real teams of the NL Central wasn't enough. Once July hit, things fell to the wayside. They are what they are. A mediocre franchise. Seemingly putting all of their eggs in the likes of Jordan Walker, yet whiffed like him at the plate. Death approaches fast. Only able to stave off total rot thanks to smooth fielding. They finally traded a few pieces at the deadline, so maybe they got the memo, but it's hard to let things go. The Steelers of baseball aren't called that without reason. I'd ask anyone in St. Louis how they feel, but it's obvious from how nobody bothered to show up to games. Why the hell would you plunker down hard-earned cash for a chance to see 83 and 79 Super Bowl? Shit, that didn't even happen either. The DeWitt family says they're staying put for a long time. Plan the goddamn parade! Serious about that, John Mazelli Extel tenure's finally being fired via promotion. Chaim Bloom will get his fingers all over this juicy, delicate bird. There's a lot of work that needs done. A team with some talent and a top 10 farm system, but lacks a true identity with a number of bad contracts to maneuver around. What they do from here will be intriguing. Do they open their purse to prove they're legit or continue with the delusions of the 83 and 79 standard? Wait a second, they're keeping Oli Marmol? 2023 is both within reach yet so far away from you. The frustrations of trying to recapture that magic were on full display all season. Having one of the better hitting cores in baseball with balance and power throughout meant nothing. Same shit as last year. They can't pitch. No matter what the D-backs try to accomplish, they legitimately can't throw the ball without it being smacked into the second deck. Or an eating TJ. Their offseason Golden Goose and Corbin Burns had to go under the knife in the early game. That pretty much ended their season. The rest is Zach Gallen falling off the wagon and Merrill Kelly sent off to Arlington for prospects. Shelby Miller's revival was a good story too, but he was traded as well. Pitching core as broken as Jordan Montgomery's tenure. Oddly enough, even for their liabilities in throwing the ball, they were in the playoff hunt until the very last moment. Seriously, where the fuck did that September come from? Probably more because nobody wanted the right to get their asses kicked by the Dodgers, but they were very close. At least until running into the Dodgers and Padres, losing 5 straight to end the year. That was the day. The only option is to try to throw more resources at pitching. They have the bats to make a run. Geraldo Perdomo's a borderline MVP candidate. Plus, they still have Carroll and Marte. The core is there, but can they piece together everything else? As long as they don't get meddled into another Montgomery anchor, they might have a chance. There are awfully bad teams, there are hilariously bad teams, and then there are the Rockies. Any way you throw a dart, Colorado was horrific. It's legitimately an everything problem, no joke. The worst run differential in modern baseball history. A disparity of 424. It's like they were a beer league team against pros. They weren't historically bad as we were hoping, except in road batting average. Dear God. The Rocks were simply the non-notable version of terrible with 43 wins. Exactly how the Monforts want it. Know the solution to this dilemma? Adding even more Monforts. And finally fixing the glitch that kept paying Bud Black. Honestly, that's showing mercy to him after the shit he's had to put up with these last few years. Being the best bar in Denver and the worst baseball team in the league requires them to do some work. I don't know why the fuck Bill Schmidt was promoted to GM, but they found a way to fix the glitch there as well. Or even looking outside the organization, leaving no stone unturned for a top executive prospect in all the land. 25 years ago, Paul DePodesta, almost a decade out of baseball as the new czar. Wasn't he the guy who pushed the Browns to trade for Deshaun Watson? Thank God they can't trade first-round picks in baseball, even if it is only 10th overall due to draft lottery rules. This season rivaled the Chris Bryant contract. Welcome to pure mediocrity. It's residing in the Bay Area. I'm not even being hyperbolic, they're literally a 500 team over their last 500 games. The Washington commies of the baseball world. Dan Snyder era, without the whole cancerous ownership thing. Things did look like they were going to be different for a hot minute. Near the top of an elite division come June, then the wheels started coming off. And the axles as well. And then the wagon fell off a steep chasm. Pitching took a major step back and then they sold pieces at the deadline. Even when nearly coming back into the picture on more than several occasions, inconsistency did them in. No, Giants, Ryan Walker isn't a closer. Stop thinking he is. Bob Melvin's Moneyball magic is worn off and it's obvious to anyone paying attention. He ran off from Oakland, he ran off from San Diego, but he's not running from this sheriff. He'll pay for his managerial crimes with termination. However, he escapes jail to go back to the Giants. In Japan. To try and break them out of baseball purgatory, America's Giants try for a unique hire. We know of college coaches rarely working out in the NFL, but a college manager in MLB? Tony Vitello's volunteering to be a guinea pig. He's even taking a pay cut to do it. Maybe Vitello gives Tyler Rogers back the beer he left in the clubhouse. Worst case scenario, Posey can just drag Bochy out of his advisory role. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but how do they break out of the mediocrity? Logan Webb can't be cloned for the rotation, and Bryce Eldridge might need a little more time to develop. I don't envy their situation, but I think some more buying may be in order. San Francisco wants to ascend and fast.
That's a great moment. There you go, Bob. Enjoy, my friend. gonna do a ball game now?
Yeah.